Welcome to today's edition of Pegasus Test. On today's edition, we're going to review the Gunskins For Shotgun kit using Stalklands Legacy Camouflage. So now that we've done degreasing the shotgun, what we do next is disassemble it so we can put the gun skin on. To apply a gun skin to your shotgun, what you're going to need, besides a shotgun, is a gun skin kit. In this case, we're going to go ahead and use Stalklands Legacy as the kit we apply. You're also going to need, to degrease the gun like we showed you, you can use frog lube, or for covering a wide area, I prefer to use non-chlorinated brake cleaner that you can buy at any auto parts store. You're going to need an X-Acto knife for trimming down the gun skin to your particular shotgun. And it always helps to have the little gun skin squeegee that helps you work the gun skin into the little cracks and crevices of any gun, and it's a really handy tool to have, so I suggest everybody get one. Alright, the first part you install is the left side buttstock. So you go ahead and peel it off the decal backer, place it down. The nice thing about the adhesive on the gun skin is that it's very tacky, it sticks to the gun well, but it allows you to pull off and reapply as necessary to make sure you get it just right. I always like to use the knife to help peel it off to prevent tearing of the material. And you just check out, make sure where it's at, make sure you got it centered, and slowly press down and work out any wrinkles that are along the way. You'll notice back here it doesn't go all the way over the recoil pad, and that's because we're going to trim it off and align the recoil pad, so that's not that important. And you'll notice on this side I've come up on the pistol grip there and up on the receiver, and we're going to want some overlap there because when it comes time to put the receiver halves on, we're going to have to trim it down a little so the patterns blend and there's not abrupt lines. So go ahead, get that pressed in pretty good. Smooth out anything that you find, any air bubbles, work those out as we get things to the edge. Now when we get to the edge, that's where we're going to use our heat gun. And heat will heat up the material, make it pliable, and allow us to stretch it around the stock. You want to use enough heat to get things stretched out, but at the same time, you don't want to use so much heat that it rips the material. And what you're trying to do is to get it to the halfway point. So once you get past the halfway point, if you get the odd wrinkle here and there, it's no big deal because you're going to trim that off. So like I say, you're going for the halfway point. The tough part here is on the wrist. That's where you're going to have the biggest problem because the wrist has some pretty interesting angles to it. But here, as you can see on the halfway point, I've done pretty good. Got that down. So I'm going to give a minute for that to cool, and then I'm going to trim off the excess. And then while it's cooling, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this part around. Once again, and heat up the material. Okay, now Gunskins claims instead of a heat gun, you can go ahead and use a hair dryer, and that is true. I did a magazine using a hair dryer. Excuse me. You can in fact do that, but the problem that you have is that heat guns and hair dryers put out different types of heat, and with that you get a different reaction. And I found the heat gun to be a better solution. You can see I was just making some relief cuts there to allow me to stretch the material. So again, heat helps the material stretch. Okay, got that past the halfway point. And right here is the butt of the gun and the curve right there. So that's another place we're going to need to apply some heat to get some stretch. And remember, we're just trying to get to the halfway point. So over the halfway point, if there's any wrinkles, you're good to go. Now, to show how we trim out the top, I've gone ahead so I can have an extra set of hands Used an MTM case guard rifle holder, and I've gone ahead and shut the shotgun in it so I can go have my hands free and also have a good view for you all on camera. So basically I pick the center line, take my knife, and I just carve right down it. And then peel it off. And got a little off there, but I'm going to have a little extra, so that little bit that peeled off will come from the other side and be covered up. Now flipping over, we're going to do the exact same thing. And basically we're going to follow the same procedure. We're just going to trim right down the middle. Alrighty. And the next part we trim is right around the wrist. And just smooth it out. And this little bit of excess here, just trim that. And basically it's a case of, as they say, rinse, lather, and repeat on the other side of the shotgun, which we'll go ahead and do next. And just like on the left side, on the right side, I'm going to use my blade, get in there, get the peeling started. Make sure I've got it centered where I want it, and just work it along from the center to the outside edges, smoothing out any ridges I encounter on the way. And just like before, we're overlapping up onto the receiver, so when we put the receiver pieces on, they'll come and coat and overlap, and we can blend in the material. Okay, as we define the edges here, just like on the other side, now it's time to break out our heat gun, heat this stuff up, make it a little bit more pliable. And it's a little easier to know where halfway here is, because when you're starting to touch on other material, you kind of know you're there. And like before, as that cools, we'll work on the other side. Heat makes gun skins pliable, but coolness makes it easier to cut. It gets very stretchy, and when it's stretchy, it is hard to cut. And you'll notice right there, we're already getting a gap. Well, that's going to be fixable. That's why you save your scraps and blend them in later. Just a minute, we'll go ahead, let that cool, put it back into the gun rest, trim the top, and come back and start trimming some excess off the bottom. Alright, now that we have it in the rest, we're going to go ahead and trim off the excess here, and we're going to make a bit of a meandering kind of back and forth S-type cut, so it helps the material blend in, so there won't be a distinct straight line. Okay, we got a little lessons learned there. I got a little wild with my S-cuts, as you can see, and we got a little bit here left over, and we have a little bit here uncovered right there. But what we're going to do later on, when we've got all the gun skins on and we have all our scraps, we're going to go cover that up. And we'll probably get the scraps from this section right here that we trim off around the recoil pad. Now smooth things out, get them back together. Pretty good. Like I said, human error on my part, no big deal. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and trim our excess off the bottom. And I got a cleaner line that time. Okay, now as you remember, we made a relief cut here. Now we're going to trim off what we got here on the bottom of the wrist. And I'm going to go ahead and follow the edge of the gun. And actually, I'll just use that piece I trimmed off. I can blend in, but see, the colors don't match, so I'm not going to do that. Pull that off, and later on, like I said, find a little piece that kind of blends into that spot a little bit better. Next, we got to trim up here on the wrist. And first thing we can do, make a little relief cut. Okay, now we're going to start on the left side again, doing the left side receiver piece. And this is where we start to blend patterns, and we're going to make a little meandering cut, and then we're going to overlap in this section and then apply across and then trim off. Always find your edges and just wrap around. Now you notice I thought I had it centered. It looks like I don't quite. So what's going to happen there is when I put on the right side receiver piece, I'm going to have to bring it over a little bit more. I'll have to bear that in mind, which makes sense when you look at it. We kind of find where that trigger guard blends into the lower receiver, and we're going to go ahead at that point make a relief cut. And where our lifter is and the port there, we'll trim around that and work the material into that. Right now we're just trying to work out some kinks and crinks out of it. So we'll use our tools here to work into the cracks and crevices, work out any wrinkles that we're finding. Alright, we'll give that a second cool and then we'll start doing some trimming. Okay, the first excess we're going to cut off is what's right here at the end of the receiver. So we just reach in with our blade and trim that right off. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and get the gun rack to set this in to make the view on camera a little bit easier as we trim off the other parts. Okay, now we got this all pressed in. So we're going to give it a little blast of heat, get as much of the trigger guard in as we can here. You can trim that off and leave it all black. I'm going to cover it up with the excess, so I'm going to blend it in as much as I can. So I found my limits here. And that's an example right there. I need to change blades because when the blade starts getting a little old, a little worn, all of a sudden it doesn't want to cut the material as well. And I don't know what Gunskins makes this stuff out of, but my gosh, it will go through blades like nobody's business. Okay, now we're on to the right side of the receiver, and we're going to do the same thing we did on the left. So I've got a new blade on the knife, and we're going to go ahead and make that meandering cut to blend it in with the pattern that's already moving up to the receiver all from the stock. And I didn't leave enough room for overlap, so I'm going to pull that up. Try again. Oh yeah, it looks like I took care of it this time. No, actually, nope, no I didn't. So, pull it up again. Like I say, beauties of the Gunskin system. Don't get it right, peel it up, try again. Yeah, we got it right that time. Alright. Smooth out all your edges. Injection port here makes for a little bit of problems, but if you define the edge when we go to trim it up, that'll be easy to take care of. Okay, now we're going to give it a blast of heat right here along this edge, kind of help roll it over. As you can see, we solved our original problem there, but it's creating a gap up here. And what we're going to do is we're just going to make a little relief cut, like so. And that allows us to finish wrapping around. What we'll do, we got some wrinkles there we'll press out. And we're going to probably trim that part off. And then bring this. Every now and then, if you got a place that things don't quite work out, you just make a little relief cut. That tends to solve your problems. Now things cool down a little bit, we go ahead and trim this a little bit from the front of the receiver. And the next part we do is go ahead and wrap this part around and trim this excess off. So we push that down. That wrapped around. We'll have to put a little patch there because I so overcompensated on the top I didn't leave me enough here, but that's no big deal. It's easy to do later on at the end. See, that's one of the nice things about Gunskins. if you make a few mistakes, they give you a lot of material, so you got enough to go patch up your errors. Now we'll start trimming off some excess here. Now we already had this fixed, so all this is excess, so we can just say we'll have scraps where I can trim that up, although that's on the bottom of the gun, but I can clean that up later. That's no big deal, you know. So next thing it proves, it's not quite as easy as it looks, but it is forgiving and it's easy to correct these levels of mistakes. Now we move on to the forearm. And as you can see on this shotgun, I replaced the standard wooden 870 forearm with a Magpul forearm, and it's a great idea. I think everybody should do it. It's more durable, it resists elements better, it's got the M-lock system for mounting things. So yeah, I thought it was a good upgrade to the gun, and now I'm going to camouflage it to match the rest of the gun. Now the first thing you're going to do is trim this piece here that they give you, and it's specifically for the forearm. And as you can see, it's a lot longer than this forearm. They tell you to cut it 1 inch or 2 over the size of what you need, and you can see they give you plenty of material. So if I was doing a semi-auto shotgun that had a whole length of handguard here, there'd be more than enough material to do it. And that excess material is going to come in later because this shotgun has an extended tube on it, and I'll use that material or leftover material from the barrel for that. Okay, so this next section we're about to do, the forearm, is probably going to be the most challenging. According to the Gunskins video, what you're supposed to do is, after trimming it down to being just 1 inch over the length on each side, you then start from the middle and apply around both sides. Now as you can see, the Magpul forearm that I've chosen here has a lot going on to it. It's got these raised sections for your as hand stops. It's got all the M-lock slots. It's got gripping surfaces here. So this is going to make putting on the Gunskin a real challenge. I'm going to smooth it down in the middle here, work my way out to the ends. Use the tool and just kind of work my way around. Working those wrinkles out as we go along. We're going to get a few air bubbles along the way. It's going to be unavoidable. Not much we can do about that. And one of the things we're going to do right now is make a relief cut. Constantly be applying heat to get this material to stretch. Being aware of the Magpul contours as we go around. And I know you're going, hey, you're doing that on the back side of the camera and I really can't see, but you'll see in just a moment, so it'll all get there. So just pressing it in, working our way around. You can see the heat. You see the pliability, it starts to maneuver under its own weight, and that allows you the ability to stretch this stuff pretty good. Now, one of the things to be aware as you do that, though, is it does pick up more wrinkles. And that's kind of unavoidable on a certain level. And it will create some pockets and air bubbles. And if you watched our video about AR-15 magazines, and specifically the part 2, which dealt with the hex mag, where you get a ton of air bubbles, it's just a lot of work after the fact, that's all. But it's not an insurmountable obstacle by any stretch of the imagination. And here again, we're going to go ahead and make a relief cut. Okay, right here some explanation is in order. As I was wrapping the handguard of this shotgun, I ran into some problems with the material. It just wasn't cooperating, and as I was trying to wrap it around as per the instructional video on Gunskin's website, I was getting massive air bubbles, I was getting massive wrinkles. I was heating the material up and it just wasn't cooperating. So instead of finishing the video off as I had done in previous videos, I stopped the camera and solved the problem. And what I ended up having to do was slice off the material right below the M-LOK cutouts, and then just start on the other side from the top and work my way down. As you can see in retrospect, it came out okay, but not great. The material really fought me this time, and I don't really know why. All right, now we're moving on to the barrel. And this is a shotgun I'm set up as a riot gun / police shotgun type setup, not so much a hunting shotgun, even though I have put it in a camouflage pattern. But what I intend to do is do the barrel next, and you'll see I have this very long piece of material in the length of the barrel I have. Gunskins recommends you cut it about 1 inch longer than what you need for your barrel, and that'll work out because that'll give me an excess piece that I can go ahead and use on my extended magazine tube. Alright, now in the video that Gunskins has on their website that talks about how to apply to the barrel, they use a 28-inch vented rib barrel, and they tell you to start with the vent ribs. Well, as you can see, this is a cylinder bore 18-inch barrel, so there are no vent ribs to start with. I have plenty of material to wrap around with, so what my intention is to just start at this area here and work my way around until I get back around to overlap area. So I'll probably have a seam right along this area right here, which should be no big deal. I'm going to work our way around here. First thing we got to deal with is as we come around the barrel, as we work out wrinkles coming around the barrel, as we run into the front sight. This has a bead front sight, but it's on a fairly built up base. So the first thing we're going to do to help out with that is as we press around, we're going to treat it like the front sight on a pistol. And we're just going to make a little relief cut, kind of just wrap it around. And we'll just, with that relief cut, it allows the bead to pop through, and then we, later on in the heating process, can take care of any little air bubbles that that's creating. We'll just keep working the material around. Working it around the barrel, keeping tension on it, and dropping it so it can mess everything up. Now, one of the things to be aware of that I'm learning is I picked out this Stalklands pattern, and it seems to be a good pattern. I hadn't heard of it before at Gunskins, but it looked super interesting on the website, so I figured why the heck not. And one of the things I am learning about it is that it's very deceptive to the eye, and it's hard to tell what's a wrinkle in the pattern and really a wrinkle or an air bubble in real life. And I guess that's a good thing. That shows it's doing its part. Don't touch the heat gun, by the way. When you get down to the ring that goes around the magazine tube, you have to make a relief cut. So you get it pressed in there, find your edge, make that relief cut, and as you can see, that allows the material to just keep coming right on around. Now it kind of breaks your barrel into 2 sections there in one respect, but that's not the worst thing in the world. We make a relief cut on the other side of the magazine tube, and that allows us to keep working this section. And at this point, due to the taper of the barrel, as an 870 barrel has a pretty heavy forcing cone right here, we need to apply some heat, relieve some tension, allow us to keep wrapping around. Now you're going to say, wow, it didn't go all the way. That's not going to be a problem. And if it is, we have some extra material, but that's a part of the gun that's going to be covered up by the magazine tube. Now when I test fitted this to the shotgun, this little bit did show because of where I picked to wrap from. If I'd done this with a ventilated rib barrel, it wouldn't be a problem. And actually, visually, only reason I'm even going to address this is because I know it's there. All right, the last section I'm going to do here with the Gunskins kit is my extended magazine tube. And this is one of the cool things about the Gunskins kit, is that they give you enough material that you can do extra pieces. And I was originally going to use this section of extra barrel. But then when I did a little test fitting, one of the things that came out obvious was there wasn't going to be enough material to go around. So, not going to use that. I'll save that. But I have this extra piece of material from doing the forearm, and it's plenty long enough. So really, I'm just going to wrap it around and then trim it off. I'm going to pre-roll just to figure out where I need to be. All right. All right, there we have our extended magazine tube done. Now comes what Gunskins calls the most important phase, and that's post-heat. So you get your heat gun, go ahead and hit it, warm up the material, and then you press it in place using a piece of foam or your hand. Now one place to pay attention to is right here on the wrist. If you do that, that should bring out the texture, and right there it does. It's not as easy to see with this particular pattern, but you can feel the etching and the checkering that was put in the original stock. And you can feel the words Remington 870 Magnum, even though with this pattern the letters don't come through so well. I'm going to take this opportunity to flip the gun over and do the same thing on the other side. And we hit our forearm, which I didn't do such a great job on. A lot of texture going on there, and got a lot of wrinkles and bubbles that I'll be working on for a while. You find the bubbles, go through with your knife, pop them, and get the air out. That'll help get rid of them. Also, it'll help smooth out those rough edges on any gun where you have an M-lock type or even a key mod type system. You know, use the foam, press it in there, it sets the material in around it. And same thing on the barrel. Give the barrel some heat. So press it on in there. Find an air bubble, press it on out. And you will have some up around the forcing cone here. It's inevitable. You cannot help but have some. This Gunskins experience for the shotgun has been interesting, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean it just like that. It's interesting. It hasn't been the experience I've had with other Gunskins kits, which have been very positive. This one fought me. It was a lot harder to put on than any other kit that I've done, and I really racked my brain since doing this, and I'm going to give Gunskins a pass. I'm going to chalk it off to environmental conditions. I did this kit in my garage, as I have done every other kit. The difference being, this one was done in winter. It was very cold outside. It was cold in my garage the day I did it. And I think that had an effect on the material. Even though I would heat it up and make it pliable, I think it cooled very quickly, cooled more quickly than I was manipulating the material to do what I needed to do. This kit looks good. I mean, look from this distance, it looks good. And in the past, when I made blemishes and mistakes on a Gunskins kit, they were blemishes and mistakes that you couldn't see past arm's length distance. So in my mind, that didn't really matter. In this case, these are blemishes and mistakes that you can see a little bit further distance. I don't know if that was due to, like I say, the temperature of the material or the particular camouflage pattern I chose. As I said at the beginning of the video, this is Stalklands Legacy. It's a fairly new pattern for Gunskins. And I don't know if that has an effect because of the color pattern just makes wrinkles or bubbles, all that more distinct. But I can definitely see a lot more of them in this, and I got a lot more than I normally had. Also, I don't know if it's because the pattern itself is very unique. There's no straight lines, there's no hard edges, all the colors are blurred from one to another. They're, not distinct hard lines, and that has made the seams stick out way more. On the other guns that I've done, the seams don't seem to be that prominent, but here I can see them wherever I look. And that might just be a case that I know where they are, and the next person to pick the shotgun up wouldn't see them because they don't know. But in my opinion, this kit fought me doing it more than most. But that, like I say, that might be the camouflage pattern I chose. It might have been the environmental conditions I did the kit in. But I'm going to give Gunskins a pass on this one because really it looks great from a distance, which is all we ask for. It does blend in. And maybe later in the year, if I acquire another shotgun or rifle that I want to do, I'll go ahead and try it again and just see an apples to apples comparison to see, was temperature a factor? Was the particular camouflage pattern I picked a factor? If you go back and look at our Gunskins for Rifle and Scopes video, I did a conventional Savage rifle, which has the same basic buttstock profile. Didn't have the problem of conforming it to the stock that I had on this one. I also, if you check out our video about the AK, I have a Zukov forearm on it, which basically has the same contour lines as this Magpul forend here on the 870, and I didn't have nearly the trouble getting the Gunskins onto that as I did getting it onto this one. And that's what makes me think that maybe the environment I did it in was a factor. We shall see. Anyways, please comment, like, and subscribe, and tune in for future camouflage and Gunskins videos.